welcome to this week in WordPress and Tech with Power OBE, which is great. This is episode 671, and I'd like to get the guests to introduce themselves. I think we'll go with Jonathan Denwood first, because he's my host, and then we'll go on to Penny.
Oh, thanks, Andrew. I'm the founder of WP-Tonic. We help people, coaches, people that want to make a business out of e-learning, use it, the power of WordPress, but remove some of the hurdles. Back over to you, Andrew.
Right, Power OBE, we're very honoured to have you with us today. Give us yourself a little elevator pitch of who you are and why you are.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew and Jonathan. I'm excited about this. I'm very excited about understanding that WordPress can also have all these plugins to make it a learning system. But I know that's not what we're going to be talking about today, but it was fantastic to research what you do, Jonathan. Thank you very much for having me on your show, both of you. I haven't got an elevator pitch. I don't know, maybe I don't go out networking like that enough, but my world is very much around community, how you become a citizen of a community, how you build community, how community can be a really big business-led growth strategy. A community can be. So I think we're going to talk today a little bit about that, about networking, community, or the online world, post-pandemic, all these things. And I'm looking forward to it very much.
Brilliant. Right. Well, I'll do my introduction because I didn't do it. So I'm Andrew Palmer from Bertha.ai, which is an artificial intelligence writing assistant built right into WordPress so you can write where you work. And on that note, we're just going to take a very short break because we're going to pay the piper with our lovely sponsors. And we're back. Right. So, Penny, this week's question, or number one question, is what do you think are some of the major tech trends that have been accelerated during the pandemic? And you kind of alluded to that in your introduction. And how will these affect relationship building in the future, specifically for you, but maybe for your community as well?
Well, if I start by saying that I've been in technology since I was 19. I joined it in 1983. So I have seen the emergence of huge amounts of things, literally from the desktop going into the office and then through to the family office computer, the family computer, I should say, all the way through to the internet. And I started the first social network in the world in 1998, Ecademy, which predated LinkedIn and Facebook. And so it's been really fascinating for me as a relatively older person, I suppose, I'm 58 now, to watch all these trends coming up. And obviously the pandemic, the joy in it for me personally was that a lot of people who resisted technology just had to get on board to it.
They did.
And I think that's one of the most exciting trends that have happened because, I mean, from councils that said, we're got a 12-year program to deliver stuff online to sort of delivering something within 3 days, it accelerated the motivation. So that's all really great. And obviously the use of Zoom, WebEx, Teams, the ability to use things like StreamYard or Restream, these types of tools so that we can stream out to lots of audiences. I had a lot of clients that were very, very resistant to doing things like that. They were terrified of the camera, absolutely terrified of it. And so the greatest trend, I think, is obviously the use of technology has now expanded out. And when I look at a lot of people my age, a lot of them were hoping that they could retire before the need to be really embedded in technology would bite their bum. And they can't, it's happened quicker. So that's great. And then in terms of, I suppose, more of the soft skills around technology, I'm really intrigued by that because when we first started a social network back in 1998, we were trying to convince people that you could be a friend online. And literally it was 4 years before Facebook. No, it was 4 years before LinkedIn, 6 years before Facebook, 8 years before Twitter. And so we were really evangelizing a concept to people. And we obviously had the early adopters, the lowest hanging fruit. And we could then teach them the culture that we wanted to create, which was friendship first, commerce second. Build your social capital. And then as we became more and more successful, the more transactionally thinking people started to think, wow, here's a huge community of people that I could sell to. And they became the hunters, and they would join and they would damage their reputation because they would just burn through everybody and not be interested in being a friend and not interested in engaging. And then social media came about, okay? And we moved from social networking to the joy for a lot of people of, well, now I don't have to engage at all. I can just broadcast some stuff out, and I can even delegate that to loads of people, and I don't even have to make the effort to talk to people. And I think that was a great shame, because I think people then became hidden behind all these automated systems, and they lost their personal brand, really, and therefore lost their social capital in doing that. And I've been banging the drum fiercely for years through speaking and writing about, you as a person, what you do matters. Obviously, it's important, because we all want to find great experts, but who you are is going to matter much greater than that. And I think, to try and close off that question that you asked, is what's accelerated during the pandemic is, I think, people, by being isolated, by being lonely, by not having the office waterhole or the ability to network in the same way, they have learned to engage online, and through these tools spend a little bit of time asking questions like, what's that behind you, and have I shown you my dog, and talking about their family and health. And I think that this has meant people are starting to engage at a human level, and that is what I love. And I think that's more sustainable when you're building a business.
Getting their personal brand sorted. What do you think, Jonathan, to that? A lovely answer, Penny, by the way. But what do you think, John? What Penny said?
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. I wonder if you got any insights about how somebody should try and build a professional network in 2022 with a focus on LinkedIn. I have a lot of people contact me through LinkedIn, and they don't do, to my sense, then it's not done very well. I don't know, it's because the way they're doing it, or it's something to do with LinkedIn in general. But I tend to use the podcast as a way of and try and offer some value, but hardly any. It all seems to be canned to me.
So, how shall I answer this? I am definitely somebody who prefers quality over quantity. And we've always joked about that. I think I said that first at sort of an Ecademy meeting in London. We used to have about 600 people meet once a month. And I said that, and there was a lot of laughter, because there was my husband and I standing up on stage together, and I think they thought I was talking about something else. But I always believed in quality over quantity. However, there is no doubt that if you can build a lot of connections and have a very open and random and supportive attitude to the way you do it, your social capital is greater, and the randomness of your connections can be quite incredible. So I think the gratuitous just sending out connect without any relevance and without any resonance is a complete waste of time. But I think we need to be realistic about life. I started being in business when I was 19 in telesales. And at the time, in 1983, and many people will remember this, we had yellow pages, and we had a telephone, and we had an index card box at the front. And there were 5. I worked for a computer distributor it was selling Hewlett-Packard, Microsoft, PageMaker, all sorts of software and hardware so I was in a distributor. And there were 5,000 computer dealers. And we had to make phone calls to them to try and get their business. And we would literally go through the yellow pages and say hi, and ask them if they needed anything at the moment. Cold calling or whatever. Over time, we built a relationship. And I remember the first order I got, and this is really relevant because I don't think that things have changed. Just because it's technology, humans haven't changed. We all have the same needs to matter, belong, people to be interested in us. So the first order I got when I was working for this company, and I'd been sent on a telesales training course that left me cold because it was all manipulated scripts. The first order I got was I rang a guy. He had a business in Tolworth in London, near London, South London. Data Systems Electronics, they were called. His name was Roland. He answered the phone and with a cough. And I said, "Oh, hi, Roland. my name's Penny Ross at the time, and I work for Bitech. And I said, you don't sound terribly well. So completely off script here. And he said, no, I've got a cough. I've got a bad cough and I feel quite ill. In fact, I'm going to go home after this call. And I said, oh, I'm really sorry. I'm ringing from Bitech and I'm actually trying to sell to you. And I bet you're not in the mood for that. So go home and I'll ring you another day. And that was it. And then when I went out for lunch that day, and I found there was this lay-by that somebody had a tea van and sold sandwiches. And on the counter in this van was a display of Tunes cough sweets, and I bought them for Roland. There was no ulterior motive. I went back to the office and I said to my supervisor, Suzanne, am I allowed to use the franking machine? People might not know what that is, but that's for posting in business.
We know what it is, don't worry.
Yeah, and can I have a little jiffy bag and a compliment slip? Can I send this? And she said, don't be ridiculous. Why would you send something like that out? And I said, well, he's not feeling very well. She said, no, you can't. So I said, well, am I allowed to buy it? So I went to the secretary and I paid for an envelope and the franking machine, and I put a little note in there. And I said, I hope he feels better soon. 3 days later, he rang up and he said, the call was put through to me, the first call that was ever put through to me as a salesperson. And he said, hello, it's Roland. You rang me the other day when I had a cough. Oh, hello, Roland. What can I do for you? And he said, well, get a pen and paper out. I've got an order. And I just wrote down all these things, you pack on this and Microsoft this and da. I wrote it all down on a piece of paper in our day book that we had. And I said, thank you. I've no idea how to put this into the system. Can I ring you back, Roland, afterwards? And he said, yes. Went to my supervisor, showed her this piece of paper, and she looked at me in shock and she said, well, how have you got an order of that size? And I said, well, I sent him some Tunes. And from that day onwards, using my own values and my beliefs around relationships and caring for people and working on the long term, I have always fought for the fact that we should build relationships, create our social capital, not look for a transactional outcome, and just connect because we love people. And it's worked. So it's a long answer, Jonathan, to your question. How do
I'm notorious for my winding long questions, ask Andrew.
Right. So how do people build LinkedIn? So LinkedIn, at the very worst, it's just a beast of a machine to be able to cold call people.
Sure.
Right? And we could do that years ago and be crap at it. Now we've got the ability to connect with someone and actually be interested in them, actually have a conversation with them, actually listen to what their needs are and what their life is about and what's going on for them. Have they got a cough? And start to engage and look at the long term. And that is what I've believed in since technology enabled us back in 1998 when we started. That is what I believed in. And it's called building social capital and being a citizen of these places.
Yeah,
I think it's great. Just sorry, Jonathan, to interrupt me. I've got the title for Penny's next book, which is "Have You Got a Cough?" And carry on, Jonathan.
I like that. I love that.
It's just that I think it's about having some personal charm, but I'm amazed at the people that contact me through LinkedIn, and it's obviously a canned response, and that's not so bad. It's just that you think they would just offer some kind of value, I know you do the podcast, this person might be a good guest to you, or I see that you're in e-learning, this person might be interested. But they don't, it's just, they contact me and it's just a ramble about them. They don't offer anything.
I think that's the point that Penny's making. You're making that point, Penny, you're making that point is that connection is about being kind, being helpful, being caring, but even to the degree that Jonathan says, I know you do the podcast, and I think Penny Power would be great for this interview. Why don't you connect with them? And that would then make me remember that person, or make Jonathan remember that person. I want to move on to another question which Jonathan can ask. It's number 3. It's with the, starts with the, because I don't like asking questions like this because I'm a bit funny on questions like this. But I mean, I don't, Jonathan can ask this one. You can get the blame.
Oh, you want me to ask question 3?
Yeah.
So, I think it's linked to the last conversation.
No, number 3 or 4. It's with the Me Too.
Number 4. I know which one.
Oh no, the Me Too.
Yeah.
So, I don't want it, I know you don't, and I definitely don't, I don't want it to go into a political discussion. I've got another show for that, Penny. But the Me Too movement, the reason why I selected this as a topic for our discussion, Penny, is that in some of your other interviews, you talk about the balance between, don't think business isn't about relationships, because it is personal. I think you stated that in one of your recent other interviews, and I agree with that. The idea that you can divorce your business from your personal, but in some ways you do have to do it, but it is all intertwined. And there's been a lot of discussion in the tech community, especially in America, where people have been taking personal discussions and they've been discussing it at work. There was a company called Basecamp that has a very popular project management software. And literally their company imploded through discussions. So I was going to ask you, where's the balance? Where do you see the balance?
I think what we've got, and I know we're sort of, the Me Too movement is what you were also intimating earlier. Let me start with this. A friend of mine once said to me, and she was a specialist in psychology and neuroscience and behavioral change and organizational change. We were having this really interesting conversation about change. And it was actually personal to me, because I went through a real crisis of confidence after Ecademy came to an end. And then I went into business with someone who was just unpleasant. It was a real accident, but possibly done in scarcity from my point of view. And as a result of it, I became quite untrusting of people. And she said, you've obviously had pain in business, and this is becoming relevant. You've always had pain in business, Penny. And so if I don't know whether does this go out as a video or does this go out just as voice?
It's live as a video, but it's actually live. We're live into it, but it also streams.
So if anybody's listening to this rather than watching it, I'm going to just hold a pen up and I'm just going to have it straight line and horizontal. And if that was a pivot point, like a seesaw in the middle, sometimes things can go far too much to one side. It's an unbalanced. Okay, so for me, for example, regarding trusting people, I'd gone way to the left, and the seesaw was now really shooting up to the sky. And she said, sometimes the way that change has to take place is you go all the way to the other side when you want to address a problem. You overcompensate, and then eventually it balances into the middle. And that's been a really interesting thing to learn, because when you look at the Me Too movement, in some respects, some of us will think it's gone far too far to one side, because people are becoming so sensitive. And I've experienced this. I referred to the female entrepreneurs within BIP 100. I wrote, hello, ladies. 2 of them told me that was really disparaging. And I'm a woman.
Sure, it's difficult. This is why I don't even like asking the question, because it's just
exactly. So I blushed with embarrassment, and I was doing this on WhatsApp, and they couldn't even see it. And I said, "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I had no idea that was disparaging. What should I call you?" And they said, "Call us female entrepreneurs or women." I didn't even know that, but that's a fact. And to a certain extent, I thought, "Oh my God, help me here. I'm a woman, and I'm doing this wrong."
Sure.
So it's very scary.
I don't want to interrupt you, Penny, but my reaction would be, if I utilize the word girls, I do feel that's pretty patronizing.
It is,
but to say ladies or women, but I think you're pointing out we have
So I had a conversation with my daughter about this. Okay, now this is taking this talk to a different level in a way, and I apologize if this triggers anyone.
No, don't worry, carry on.
But our daughter in 2016, when she was 24, went away to skiing in Morzine, And unfortunately, a car drove up when she was walking between a nightclub and a bar. 3 men in it dragged her into the car and abducted her and raped her.
I'm so sorry.
And that is the most extreme form of abuse of a woman. And absolutely, you know, we have to do something about this way. But she said to me, the thing about Me Too, Mum, is you don't create change for the huge scale of awful things that happen to people without addressing it at the very, very minimal side. And that's why it's maybe gone so far over, like I was showing with this list, but it needs to, because it's been really bad. And therefore I think we have to learn and educate ourselves. And equally, like if you make a mistake, like I have with those female entrepreneurs, learn from it, respect it, and move on. But I don't think while you're learning, people should be too reprimanded in those things.
I'm with you all the way on that one, because we are still learning. It's so new.
We're all still learning, because we've got generations and generations of treatment and habits that are laid down in DNA and in the way we behave that has to change. And
well, especially for us, we all grew up in the 60s, right? You know, I was born in 1960, so you know, and Jonathan, I think 1934 or something. But,
that's the kindest thing you said to me.
We've had different culture shocks all the way through our lives. You know, we had the 60s, we had the 70s, with the 80s, the 90s, the whatever it was. So we've had culture, and I call Me Too a bit of a culture shock, because it's to us. We say, right, you're right. You know, you are right about that. And I agree with you, and I'll move on. I'll try and draw a line, like the accountants say, draw a red line under it and move on. Right, now, next on from that.
We need to go for a break.
We've got to go for a little break for a little second. Again, to pay the piper, but our wonderful sponsors, we could not do this without them. So we'll see you in a second or two. Right, we're back now. So number 4, we go with another question. We kind of mucked around the questions a bit here today, but so with you've kind of answered this, but I'm going to ask this question. And how does it affect you? Because I know that you're a child of the same kind of decade as myself. And how, with the acceleration of remote working connected to the pandemic, how do you see that affecting company culture and effectiveness with the people that you're working with currently?
Well, it's a very frightening time for leaders, I think, because they're also human and they've also had to learn to adapt. You know, I remember for the first time I ever saw a teacher when I was at school walk into a toilet, I thought, oh my gosh, teachers use toilets as well.
Yeah, they are human.
Leaders are no different to any of us. They have the same vulnerabilities. They have to go through the same learning. They have to, hopefully be motivated to do that. But we were all thrown into chaos. You know, these senior leaders, they were thrown into children at home, homeworks, challenges, technology challenges. You know, how do I keep my team psychologically safe? How do I keep them motivated? How do I get them onto the technology? You know, they've all been through hell. And so I think, again, there's a little bit of tolerance at the beginning needed to happen. And I hope it did happen. But now it's bedding down and it's not going to change because the actual workers are asking for this hybrid world. And so
we've got government ministers walking into their parliamentary offices and going into the civil servants and leaving little notes and saying, I popped by to say hello. I'll look forward to seeing you in soon, you know, and that's kind of not the attitude that we want. Certainly not. I don't want that. I want people to accept that this is the new norm, right? Absolutely. I've worked from home for 20 years. We've got StreamYard, we've got Zoom, we've got all the connectivity that we need. And it's kind of demonstrated we needed to up our game in broadband and internet access about 5 years ago. If we'd been at this level 5 years ago, we'd have been much better off. But I totally agree with you. We've got a work from home mentality. We've got people wanting to get on with their lives, which we can do now. We're saving. So a friend of mine that was used to commute into London at 5 a.m. in the morning and get home at 8 p.m. at night, just so that he could do his 9 to 5 job, has saved what, 5 hours a day.
I know,
So
it's amazing.
And it's enlivened them.
Exactly. And there's two things about this. Obviously, the subject of mental health and well-being has really shot up, and I think that's really powerful. And what worries me is that some companies are burning their staff too much. So there was a company in New York that hired me to do a talk on well-being and company culture. And when I was doing the briefing, the HR girl very proudly said, well, we allow the green light on Slack, which that might not mean much to some people, so we can explain it, but the green light on Slack to be off for 30 minutes a day. So now the green light on Slack, so Slack's this productivity project management tool, whatever it is, but it can also work like an internal social network on stuff. And it has a green light, and you can toggle it to a red light, when you go off to the loo, because it means I'm not available. So they had a company policy of that. And the other company policy, which they were very proud of, is that they had bought all their staff a year's subscription to Calm. All right.
Awesome. Yeah.
So what they were doing is very task related, and on delegating it out, they weren't actually sorting the culture and the leadership and making this a very loving space and a great place to belong to. And my philosophy in life, business is personal, sits alongside the fact that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which many of us know, the pyramid, number 3 in that, after physiological needs, physical needs and safety, is love and belonging. We all need a sense of love and belonging, and that doesn't stop the minute you walk into business. In fact, to a lot of people, it's where they spend most of their time around people, and they need that even more, because that's where they get the sense of attachment and self-esteem and the fact that they matter.
I actually quite like the green light and the calm bit, but I get what you're saying, because we don't have the water cooler moments anymore if you're working remotely.
No, we don't have anything to make us have that sense of belonging, and that place where me as a whole person gets regarded and respected. We had a scenario with somebody, one of Thomas's clients, Thomas found out that one of the members, their brother, had committed suicide. Nobody in the company knew that. And
because that's not the online world isn't really where you discuss that, and also there's triggers with it. We've actually had 2 big triggers in this one where you described the ski resort incidents, and one where you've just regarded that. And now when there's a very, very good podcaster out there that actually warns people there's a trigger warning and everything. And we've got in our society as WordPress, we've got a thing called Big Orange Heart, which looks after the well-being of all the people, the WordPressers and stuff like that. And so being kind of associated with that and donating to that occasionally, we've learned how to be more caring to people and help their mental health. We have, Jonathan and I have conversations occasionally, and we're very, very appropriate around it. And sometimes we have the inappropriate conversations that 2 blokes would have when they're just having a chat, So I absolutely get that. Now, Jonathan, we've got one more question so that we keep to the time. We're 3 minutes away from the normal time. I'll let you ask this one.
I just want to respond to what
carry on.
My reaction, and then we can wrap the podcast, and then we go on for 15 minutes bonus. Cool. Which but Penny, my reaction to Calm was totally different to you and Andrew's response. As soon as you were saying that, I just thought, this is just company tokenism. It's just pure tokenism. But
absolutely.
What is a caring company, and what is a company that's just engaged in tokenism, Penny? A slightly large question, Penny. But
I think I'm really pleased you asked that, Jonathan, because I felt there was a little bit of loose ends on that. I think, listen, I have a lot of empathy for companies. They're there to make money, be able to pay the staff salaries, make a profit for their shareholders. It's a hard world for large companies and small companies.
everybody.
However, if we don't look after the well-being, we will get massive staff attrition, we'll get massive mental health days off, etc. So it's something that people cannot ignore. And what makes it caring? It has to come from the leadership. And to me, it's always like a family. I run communities. We've got BIP 100, which is business is personal. And we have embedded into it the culture of kindness. We've embedded into it that if you are part of this community, you have to have those, that be in the spirit of that. We've also embedded into every Tuesday morning an hour's well-being Zoom. And we have a specialist, TJ Power, who happens to be our son, but he's done a master's in psychology, performance and neuroscience. And we facilitate well-being conversation. And also we have another session once a month called a Let's Talk session, where members come on and they know it's where they can really close the gap between their identity and their truth. And they can talk with one another about what's affecting their performance. And it could be a business issue, or it could be a personal issue that's affecting their performance. And I think businesses can build these moments where people can join in and know that there's a culture where vulnerability and just being human is okay. It's not affecting your credibility or your productivity. It's the reverse. Once people have been heard and they know they matter, their productivity will go up. You know what? There's nothing nicer than having a sit with a friend, talking through something that matters to you. Sometimes you only need them to be a sounding board. You're not even asking them for solutions, and you feel better. Companies need to build that into their business, and the way I teach that is to create a community within the company.
And I'm with you on that. And I just need 30 seconds on this. I'd like the fact that somebody gave me a Calm subscription. I'd love it. And I love the green light thing and everything like that. But that has got to be married with almost an HR department becoming what it used to be. An HR department in corporations now are just looking at headcount. They're not really concentrating on the health and well-being of all their staff. So I'm for that. I have a 10-minute meeting with my guys every morning, and the first question we ask is, how are you?
Yeah.
How's it going? You know, what's going on? It sounds a bit noisy out there. What's going on? Are you all right? You know, so I totally subscribe to that. So Jonathan, brilliant. You can end this podcast if you like, or this section of the podcast, and let's move on.
Yeah, sure. It's been a great interview. Penny's going to stay on for another 10-15 minutes. We're going to be doing another dive. I'm fascinated by this question of remote working and building real culture. And our last question, really. You can watch all this on the WP-Tonic YouTube channel, the whole interview plus the bonus content. Penny, what's the best way for people to find out more about you and your fabulous ideas and insights?
Oh, well, at the moment, and I'm very proud of this, talking about LinkedIn, you know, if you if you're paying like for Sales Navigator, you can toggle creator mode on. And when you have creator mode on, you can create newsletters. Very clever. So tomorrow I release my 9th one in the newsletter. And it's a great discipline. And so that's, I suppose, 9 weeks ago, I did my first one, and it's around community-led business growth. And it's a story I'm building up. In fact, I think I'm going to extract it and turn it into a little book, because it's a fascinating subject, this. So if I want anybody to sort of think, what's Penny all about? It is community, and it's about what community gives to a business. And I believe in revenue generating communities. I think it's part of a business model. So you can follow me on LinkedIn and have a look at my newsletter. And I'd love that, and connect with me on LinkedIn also if you like. I've got a website, pennypower.co.uk, absolutely overdue being updated.
Don't make apologies about your website, please.
How many people say it needs to be updated? I did it 2 years ago, but obviously things, you advance.
I think you've been unfair to it, Penny. I've seen a lot worse.
Only seen a lot worse. No, I'm quite happy with the way it looks. It's just the content on it isn't completely, I haven't got this community stuff on it, for example. And then BIP 100 is this community that we run, and it's there's a BIP100.club is the URL for that. So if you wanted to look that up, So thank you. That's very generous of you both to let me share that. But yeah, it'd be lovely.
No problem, Penny. So, Andrew, what's the best way for people to find out more about you and what your thoughts are?
You can find me at thisisandrewpalmer.com, bertha.ai, and on Twitter you can find me at Arnie Palmer, ARNIE Palmer.
Oh, thanks, Andrew. And thank you, Penny. We're going to wrap up the podcast. Like I say, to watch the bonus content and the whole interview, go over to the WP-Tonic YouTube channel. Please subscribe to that as well. It really does help the show. We'll be back next week with another fabulous guest. We've got some fantastic people coming up on the show in the next couple of months, like Penny. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
So bonus content. I just want to follow through. I don't know, because I know I'm going to amaze Andrew. I was actually born in 1964, Penny. And I don't know. You can't believe it.
What month was it?
What month?
April. I'm a Aries.
I'm older than you then.
Written all over me, Penny. But I'm going to sound like a real old codger here. I just don't think I've been in business almost all my adult life, Penny. But I think I'm naive still, because I am aghast at the behaviour of politicians in the UK and in America, of business leaders, of celebrities. Just what I see as almost the total collapse of any real moral or business leadership in America and in Britain. Yet you see true leadership in the Ukraine, of all places. You see what I consider to be true leadership. Is it just me, or is there anything linked to what I'm saying?
Wow, you're taking me into very different areas.
No, because what is a cult, a business is run by its founders, by its leadership, isn't it?
And I do echo. I don't feel safe. I think you want leadership to make you feel safe and to give you hope and to manage the energy of a business. That's a leader is there to do that. To manage the motivations and the excitement and the atmosphere and all of that. And I would totally agree. It's all fallen apart a little bit, hasn't it? It's interesting that you compare it with Ukraine, because obviously, he wasn't looking for power. He wasn't looking to have this experience. He's just a normal bloke like you and I, in a way, isn't he? Sure. Who's risen to and had the opportunity to show his best self.
And his wife is somebody to be admired as well.
He also had the opportunity to get out of there, and that's the key, is that this guy is the bravest guy in the world, whatever the situation or however this situation became. So, Jonathan said what year he's born. I was born in 1960 in May, so it's my birthday month this month.
Oh.
Give you a hint, I'm a twin, and that's my star sign as well, if you believe in those kind of things, which I don't, but there you go. And growing up, we had respect for the coppers. There was a Bobby that came along, you'd always doff your cap, go make sure, and he'd give you a slap around the head. So, this political correctness that has come into play, which is a good thing mostly, has, I think, allowed our politicians and our lawmakers across the Western world, the capitalist Western world, to abuse the system and abuse what I call the proletariat, which is a very communistic word to use, but the people are suffering. We are suffering from tripling of heating bills, yet the billionaire owners of the electricity and gas companies are not paying the right amount of tax. The corporations aren't paying the right amount of tax. And what we've got to look at is say, we don't want leaders that are liars. We want them to tell us the truth. If we're in trouble as a country, we want to know why. We want to know what's going to go on. If the rules around COVID were wrong, then say, yeah, guys, we made a mistake. We've never faced this situation before. We made loads of mistakes. If somebody's a jeweler and that happens to be a landlord of a pub, and somebody has gone along to them and said, look, you're a businessman, let's set up this PPE company, then and they're his mate, then that sort of thing should not go on, right? That's just wrong. It's absolutely wrong. Whether it's illegal or not, it's wrong. So we need leaders that are honest and will take into account the workers that working for them in corporations and not take too much money. There's some corporate guys out there that are earning literally 1,000 times more than their lowest paid worker. That's outrageous. I don't care who you are, that's outrageous. So how are you because you guide and you counsel and you coach leaders in the corporate world, how do you address that kind of attitude when you have a CEO that is a little bit too Boris, let's say?
Well, I appreciate you saying that I do that. I don't think I do it explicitly. I'm not a leadership coach. I mean, we've got clients that do that, so I'm on the periphery of that. But I generally believe in leadership, and I believe in servant leadership. And don't know whether many people know about that. I'll hold this up.
Well, the leadership serve.
Yeah. So this is the book of servant leadership. I've got it out recently because I'm pulling some quotes from it by Stephen Covey. The journey into the nature of legitimate power and greatness. And servant leadership is exactly that. What we have is, it's a bit like all personality styles. There are some people that are very driven to just for success for themselves, for power for themselves, and other people that are driven for the whole, interested in creating harmony. And to a certain extent, these are almost imprints made in their personality. If you look at DISC or Myers-Briggs or, all these different tools. So not everybody's born to be a servant leader. I am a servant leader, and I'm not saying that with any smugness. It's just been the style of leadership that I've naturally inclined towards, and therefore I'm not looking for glory or power or success in my own right. I want it for the people that I serve.
Sure.
And I think that in the past, a lot of people, were that way inclined. I think that the gap between those that have and those that have not has grown, and there's become this massive addiction within some people for more and more wealth and more power. And I suppose it's down to the leaders to decide, and the shareholders of an organization, is that the sort of leader that's right for today's world?
Yeah, good.
So, I mean, you see it on, you can just compare someone like Richard Branson with Alan Sugar. It's leadership styles. And Thomas, my husband, worked for Alan Sugar when he was 22, went around the world with him with the launch of the Amstrad computer, was his right-hand man for that period. I can't even watch The Apprentice because it brings
it does my head in. Yeah, I've watched 30 seconds.
Quite a lot of pain for him from his past. It's disrespectful. And so I think the media needs to change in terms of what are the sort of people that we're wanting to celebrate. And we see it online all the time, the wrong people being celebrated because of their style of me.
Yeah,
and
just
worries me.
Just to finish off, Penny, because that's what the bonus content is, that we tend to go off the questions a little bit, but I'll just put it to you. I've been sensing that that people tend to see the problems of the world either be solved politically or religiously, but I don't think there's been enough concentration on the medical side. What I mean by that is that to be an effective leader of a business, it's a bit of a duality, because you've got to show leadership and that you care about what I call the tribe. But you also got to be a true leader. You've got to be a bit brutal sometimes. You've got to have to cut people, sack people, make people redundant. So if you can't be a bit cold-hearted and maybe a little bit mercenary, you're probably not going to be an effective leader. But where I'm getting about the medical thing, there's obviously, to me, there's a lot of leadership out there, and they're total psychopaths. That's the only word you can utilize. Do you think companies and people are going to be testing and looking at their workers more about their psychological attitudes than just their physical resume?
Well, companies where it's a founder has created it and stays at the helm and has no other stakeholders, and it's very difficult to change that leadership style. They're going to be in control. They might start seeing that they have massive staff attrition and start looking to themselves and saying, is there something about me that's not right? And they'll feel the pain. They have to feel the pain before they decide to change. Companies where they're appointed by private equity firms or shareholders, and they're put in as a role, I do think there will be a shift, because the whole aspect of how you treat people and the metrics around companies now are going to be much more around sustainability and responsibility, and CSR for years, corporate social responsibility, was so abused. It's unbelievable. I would go in and see people who had CSR budgets in organizations, and all of their initiatives and goals were completely aligned to the company's commercial needs. They were not aligned to proper corporate social responsibility.
There's a thing that's happened recently, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. This thing that's happened very recently. There's a company called Active Campaign that are an email marketing solution.
Yeah,
there's a company called Postmark. Active Campaign have just bought Postmark. Active Campaign are a normal 5-day-a-week business. They do have a caring kind of social awareness management system, but with Postmark, Natalie has taken it to the extremes. 4-day week, lots of time off for mental health. And if you go to wildbit.com, if you make a note, Penny, this will help you, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It will help every single founder to read this particular announcement of how she sold, her and her husband sold Postmark to Active Campaign, and the reasoning behind the sales negotiations as well, where she wanted her corporate culture to transfer to the new ownership of the 4-day working week, of the treating people well, of the well-being sessions that they have. It's an awesome post. It's quite long. It'll take you about 5 minutes to read, but it's where we all need to go. We need to lead by being that servant leader and making sure that all the people that are around us are aware that we are here to serve them, because the better we serve them, the better our company will do. It's quite a simple principle.
Yeah, a fascinating discussion. Just to finish off, Penny, because I just observe it in my own behaviour. I think deep down I'm a very compassionate, caring person, but I've got to be truthful. There's also the other side of me. If things have to be done, I'm up for it, and I live with my actions, and I can look in the mirror and accept what I've done. Some of it I would choose to do better. That I think that's but how some of these people look in the mirror and kind of measure their actions is. So I'm sounding a bit like an old codger, aren't I, Penny? But there we go. We're going to wrap it up now. We'll see you next week with another great interview, Tribe. We'll see you soon. Bye.
See you soon. Good luck with your client today, Penny. Thank you.
Thank you.